You know, you remind me of the man that lived by the river. He heard a radio report that the river was going to rush up and flood the town, and that all the residents should evacuate their homes. But the man said, I'm religious, I pray. God loves me, God will save me. The waters rose up. A guy in a rowboat came along and he shouted, hey, you in there, the town is flooding. Let me take you to safety. But the man shouted back, I'm religious, I pray, God loves me, God will save me. A helicopter was hovering overhead, and a guy with a megaphone shouted, hey, you down there, the town is flooding. Let me drop this ladder and I'll take you to safety. But the man shouted back that he was religious, that he prayed, that God loved him, and that God would take him to safety. The man drowned. And standing at the gates of St. Peter, he demanded an audience with God. Lord, he said, I'm a religious man. I pray. I thought you loved me. Why did this happen? God said, I sent you a radio report, a helicopter, and a guy in a rowboat. What the hell are you doing here?
Then I hopped the train to Machu Picchu, a magical spot.
When we visit Machu Picchu, we get a sense of how sophisticated was the Andean civilization. The people, overall the Cusco Valley's inhabitants, didn't know what Machu Picchu was about.
This site was meant to be a hidden site of knowledge transmission. There I saw what became familiar. The most ancient constructions, since covered by others, were the most massive with the best speeding. But what surprised me the most was this. This wall angle was perfectly matching those found on the Giza Plateau. And there too we found the same reflections in the fading. Let's run things down. On all those sides we find very heavy blocks with complex shapes assembled with an extreme precision, astronomical skills, alleged dating, and most of all, no indication on construction needs. That's where the comparison with the beavers falls through, because even if they build the same dams, they don't line them up over thousands of miles.
If you were Charles Darwin and you were thinking about the history of evolution, you would look at these examples of stonework and masonry and you would say either it's one evolutionary stream, the same stream, in which case these people all knew about each other's work even though they were separated by thousands of years, or you would say there are four parallel streams of evolution going on.
Since the Homo sapiens is the same all over the world, it's obvious that certain problems they face will get the same number and quality of answers.
To get the same answer in four parallel streams makes it, to me, seems very unlikely. It's hard to imagine that the Incas weren't anywhere near Egypt. I find that a bit hard to believe.
And if they communicated, which is more likely, how could they line up their sides so precisely? And why this 30-degree incline from our equator? Putting that question on hold, I headed to Mexico. The legend tells us that the gods met here to create the fifth sun. As in Giza, we find three main pyramids, two big ones and a smaller one. The Sun Pyramid, the Moon Pyramid, and the Feathered Snake, Quetzalcoatl Pyramid. Here we're more rational than in Egypt. For instance, the Sun Pyramid's construction is supposed to have lasted 150 years since it's not viewed as a tomb. But once again, when it comes to techniques and means, we're clueless.
What is amazing is that the Sun Pyramid and many other constructions have been built to indicate precisely what we call equinox.
My informer tipped me on another pyramid site, ignored from the public. It was located in central China, in the Shenxi province, at Xi'an. In this most ancient peopled region of China, we can see hundreds of pyramids made of clay and dirt. The Chinese authorities declined to leak anything on those pyramids. No archaeologists seem willing to talk about them. The topic is a non-starter. I couldn't get any authorization to check this site, but I met Hartwig Hausdorff, who in 1994 brought those pictures back. Apparently the only one featuring those lost pyramids. Although we found hundreds of them, each pyramid represents a tremendous work, but we don't know when, by who, how, and why they were erected.
I think that I'm the only one to have been granted by the Chinese authorities the right to shoot those pyramids. That's the reason I felt it was my duty to document their existence for the whole world.
Here again, the mystery goes on. As in Mexico and Egypt, manufacturers didn't leave any explanation.
Of course, it would be senseless to try to look for ties or cultural exchange between different times and different places of humanity.
Egypt developed way before Mexico, and there was no relationship whatsoever between North Africa and this part of America.
It's funny that Egypt, whose writing is hieroglyphics, China, whose characters are also close to hieroglyphics and even more complex, or the Mayan culture, which also has a hieroglyphics kind of writing, that they built this kind of signal monument. But it doesn't work for Mesopotamia, so it's a mere coincidence, because most writings start with an expression of reality.
We find many other common points between all those sites, but the main ones are confusing enough. A hieroglyphic or ideographic writing, bodies mummification, calendars designers, great astrological skills, earthquake-proof constructions, no indication over the means and the intention behind those realizations. To the premise of a main source to those civilizations, we're objected that those constructions occurred at different times. Let's keep in mind that monuments can't be dated, only organic remains found nearby. There were no records for those common constructions, challenging modern engineer skills. One question popped in my mind. Did those people really build those monuments?
Nothing proves to us that these smooth-sided pyramids weren't second-hand monuments used by Egyptians. I'm a scientist, so it's not easy for me to say that.
Where did this entire seismic knowledge come from? We've made a great deal of progress in that science when we managed to simulate powerful shocks with dynamites coming of age. But without them, how does it work? How could we explore dirt pyramids if we shroud them with trees? It doesn't make sense. Here's what might happen a few decades from now and what they might look like. Who will know that these were once pyramids? We don't pay attention to those architectural feats, that we could barely reproduce today.
Any material that mankind hasn't managed to invent a single material which lasts as well as this stuff. It's amazing, but we haven't done it yet.
I assume that you're waiting to trip me up. Well, I was like you when I opened this file, but I've discovered that between what we're told and archaeology's backstage, there's a whole world. When an archaeologist dares to venture out of the beaten tracks, he can't get any fun for his research. The most enigmatic sites of the planet are not properly investigated, and this situation leaves open the gateway to all kinds of abuse. But if these mysteries were solved, you wouldn't watch this movie. As long as we won't be able to date a rock's carving, we won't have any certainties. Despite this evidence, if scientists refuse to consider other hypotheses, then science won't be about science, but about belief. To understand this mystery, we need to start from scratch and sweep away those beliefs. I came back to my file. Easter Island, the Paracas Chandelier, Nazca, Cusco, Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, Machu Picchu, and Giza are lined up. Teotihuacan, Giza, and Shensi are lined up. If Giza, the most central point on Earth, is indeed a crucial piece of this gigantic puzzle, that's where we need to go back. Indeed, Giza will shed a light on everything. At this stage of the investigation, I came back to one. Still impressed by the symmetry of the Luxor statues, my journey gave me enough insight to build up rather freely all kinds of hypotheses. It's in such state of mind that I came back to the searcher who was guiding me in Egypt and then sent me all over the world. I quickly got that he knew much more on the matter, and little by little, he turned into a real informant. Sometime in the course of our many meetings, I felt I was adrift, but I had a hunch that something outstanding was lying underneath, and fortunately, I kept at it. It all started in Egypt, not very far from Giza, at the foot of the Red Pyramid ascribed to Snefru, Cheops' father. Here's what we call a pyramidion. This is the pyramid's cap. This one was discovered by the German Egyptologist Rainer Stadelmann in 1993, and my informant took me there to shoot it in 2005. The measurements taken by Stadelmann and the ones we took were precisely 1.57 meters for its base and 1 meter for its height.
We assembled it, and its dimensions were precisely 1 meter by 1.57 meters.
It was surprising to state that it was precisely 1 meter high.
The Egyptians knew many things that we inherited, not the metric system, of course, but we can think that the estimate was roughly 2 cubits. That was enough for the stonecutter.
That would mean that it was accidentally 1 meter high, because we know that the meter unit wasn't known at the time. Actually, it would be more accurate to say that we believe it was unknown at the time. I'll get back to that later. For now, I would like to report something to you. When I came back to shoot it in 2008, I was stunned to discover this.